Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Hustings special for Election Countdown. I'm joined by Paul Blomfield. Thank you for coming on.
Glad to be here.
Labour's manifesto, are you impressed by it?
I am. I think it's an exciting vision. It outlines how the country can be different. The Tories give the impression that all the bad stuff that's happening is a consequence of the financial situation that they faced since the bankers crashed the economy in 2008. I think what our manifesto shows is that there are political choices. It doesn't have to be like this. A better Britain is possible.
Are you impressed that this has given Labour the licence to go further than previous manifestos have, that we could arguably achieve more under this programme than we did under New Labour or...
Well, I think we achieved an enormous amount under the years that we were in government. I think it's too lazy and easy to write those years off. I mean, we trebled expenditure on the health service. We invested enormously in our schools in early years in the Sure Start initiative, which the Tories have unpicked. We introduced the minimum wage, working tax credits that took some of the least well off out of poverty, the civil partnerships, a whole raft of social legislation. That government did a great deal, but there was residual economic issues which it didn't begin to tackle sufficiently. And Ed Miliband began to engage in that debate, and actually this year's manifesto is very much an extension of the sort of issues that we fought the 2015 election on.
So in a sense, you'd say in the past, whereas we've had kind of social policy without the socialism, this brings back the...
Well, I don't think labels help. I think that it wasn't perhaps until the last days of the 97-2010 Labour government that there was a proper recognition of the need for industrial strategy, for the intervention of government to oil the wheels of the economy and to set a direction for the economy. And that was built on in the 2015 manifesto, together with the necessity for government to intervene to regulate the labour market so that we didn't see what we have seen over the last 7 years. For too many people, workers become poorly paid and uncertain. They don't know what they're going to be earning from 1 week to the next with 0 hours contracts. So that need for government to intervene to protect people from the excesses of an unregulated labour market.
But do you think we also need what Corbyn is trying to bring in, investment for blue-collar workers who, during periods of deindustrialisation, even under New Labour, have been forgotten?
I think what's happened, it's more complex than that. I think that what we have seen is, Sheffield is a great example of it. The city that I was brought up in as a kid, we had something like 43,000 people employed in steel. Today, that's about 2,700. A lot of those jobs have gone to China and India, to new developing economies. And the challenge was to replace them with the sort of jobs that they were, which was secure, highly regarded, skilled, and in relative terms, well paid. And because we've allowed our economy to become unbalanced, with manufacturing, for example, only 10% of GDP compared with Germany, where it's 20% of GDP, then we haven't got enough of those jobs, and that's where the focus has got to be, and that's why an industrial strategy is important.
Now, Corbyn is currently on around 32 to 34%, which, let's not try and paint over it, isn't great. But it's still better than Gordon Brown and Ed Miliband. So could you argue over those past 2 years, despite all the internal strife, that on a left-wing platform we've still made progress?
I think that what you've got to focus on is the platform, because what's very clear is that the policies, and as I say, they're a development of the policies we had in 2015. The policies are very popular. And what we've got to do over the next 3 weeks is get more people to focus on the policies and the change that's possible for Britain.
Do you think that the problems with Corbyn are purely personal?
Personally, I think there's too much focus on personality in politics. I remember once being at a meeting at which the late and great Robin Cook, who had been Labour Foreign Secretary, said that he was dealing with some of the great issues facing the world. And he went and did a press interview, and all people wanted to talk to him about was whether Gordon had smelled Tony that morning. And we shouldn't see politics as soap operas about personalities. It's about policies. It's about the direction for our country.
But when it comes to backbench rebellions and so forth, is it just personality with Corbyn? Because you agree with his policies, so what is it that unites a lot of Labour MPs against him?
Frankly, in the period in the run-up to an election, I'm not particularly interested, and I don't think the electorate will be either, in trawling back over the last couple of years of internal Labour Party history. I mean, the Conservative Party's had some fairly bitter disputes as well, and you've got a period at the moment where we've got a Conservative Prime Minister who is going to the country on the platform of strong leadership, who is in fact extraordinarily weak and who's been pushed around by the shouty right wing, demanding their terms on Brexit, and she's capitulated.
Because there has been amazing, I'd say, unity within the Labour Party ever since this election was called, which I don't think as Labour members we expected, or even the Conservative Party expected.
Well, I think there's been unity for quite some time now. I mean, we obviously had a fairly difficult leadership election last summer, but as soon as that was over, then those people who'd been Jeremy's critics have been pretty quiet. Obviously, there's one or two exceptions, just as Jeremy raised his voice fairly regularly against Labour leaders that he served under, but there's been quite a lot of unity for some time.
Do you think it'd help Jeremy Corbyn to have his own Alistair Campbell? To have his own PR person to say, look, this is the image that we want to put forward, it's going to be clean cut, it's going to be a lot better, and at the same time that's going to have that effect on backbench MPs that we had with Tony Blair, where there was more of a pyramid scheme to the top, less conversation, more direct action?
Well, again, let's not look at it in terms of personalities. I mean, Alistair Campbell was one on his own, very effective in his own way. Of course, we've got to have good communications, but let's also focus on the policies, because that's what really matters at the end of the day.
And do you think, should we win, which, again, doesn't look like it could happen, but Labour have jumped from 25% when this election started to 32 to 34%. Do you think that if there were any vested interests within the Labour Party, they'd dissipate because Labour has essentially won despite all these criticisms?
Look, I'm really not interested in talking too much about the internal politics of the Labour Party.
Okay.
We've got 3 weeks to make what I think is a crucial decision for this country. It's not about the internal politics of the Labour Party. It's not, although too often, for example, in relation to Brexit, decisions are made on the basis of the internal politics of the Conservative Party. It should be about what's right for the country. And we're at a critical crossroads in terms of what sort of country we want to be. We've seen over the last 7 years widening inequality, a steady deterioration of the health service and our other public services, and we are seeing the reckless approach that Theresa May has adopted to Brexit, leading us to potentially crashing out of Europe in a way which will destroy many jobs and livelihoods in this country. That's what we should be focused on.
Because we have been, in a sense, Labour united. There has been, left-wing momentum members going into seats of MPs that historically they haven't agreed with, so they can get those MPs back into power. And at the same time, we've seen MPs, saying, we are Labour and we still agree with Jeremy Corbyn's policies, like you've been saying.
We're very united, and it's important because there's a lot at stake in this election.
That's very good. That's all I needed to hear. Do you also think this is a chance to rediscover the Labour Party?
I think we've been on a process of rediscovery since the 2010 election, and that's what parties should do. I mean, we had an extraordinarily successful period in power between 1997 and 2010. We transformed a broken country that we inherited in 1997, and yet we had to, and we should celebrate that. We should celebrate the enormous social gains, the greater employment protection, but we should also recognise from where we need to learn and move forward. And I think that is in, as we were saying earlier, in relation to the economy and industrial strategy.
So it is a case of moving back towards these industrial policies, towards the production economy. It's about addressing these issues.
It's about rebalancing the economy, because we became over-dependent on financial services, and manufacturing wasn't playing a substantial enough role. And there are huge opportunities. It's not kind of going back to the 1970s as we've been characterised as. It's not the nonsense that Donald Trump's talking about of reopening mines and reopening factories in the Rust Belt. It's about creating new jobs for the 21st century, green jobs, which meet the new challenges that we face in addressing climate change.
Should we still aim for a socialist Britain as a party?
I think it's kind of really interesting the way that people want to pin labels. I think we should be aiming. We are a democratic socialist party, but what that means is not to kind of pin a label on what sort of Britain we want. It's to use words that people understand about fairness, equality, everybody having equal worth, everybody having a decent chance, and a chance for their children as well.
Do you think Brexit is a distraction, though, from all these social issues which the Labour Party has been trying to bring up?
I think Brexit is an enormous distraction for the country. I mean, we argued relentlessly. I personally campaigned week after week after week to stay in the European Union. I thought it was right for our country, economically and politically, and for the stability of the continent that we share with 27 other members of the European Union. But one of the other points I made was that the process of extricating ourselves from a 43-year relationship, which I thought had brought us enormous benefits, was going to divert our politics for several years, not just for the next 2 years, but for several years while we negotiate a new relationship. And that means that while all the focus is on those issues, we're not looking at the crisis in public services, we're not looking at the industrial strategy, we're not looking at all the other issues that really make a difference in people's lives.
Just moving on to Hustings tonight. NHS reinstatement bill came up that Caroline Lucas put forward. Natalie Bennett just wanted to know why the Labour Party didn't put that forward.
Well, she's not keeping up, because after it dropped, my colleague Margaret Greenwood took it up and we are putting it forward.
Oh, that's a straight answer. She also said that it didn't really matter whether Blair or Corbyn was leader, that you kind of stuck with any leader regardless of who it was.
I'm not quite sure what she means by that.
In terms of, you weren't really to the right or left of the party, you were just a Labour man. Is that a sign of integrity in terms of sticking to a cause, or is that...
I'm really sorry that Natalie has kind of tried to personalise the election in that sort of way. I mean, people in Sheffield Central, and I realise she's new to Sheffield and she doesn't know too much about the city, but people in Sheffield Central know me not simply for the last 7 years that I've been an MP, but for the previous 30-odd years that I was involved actively in politics in the city. They know my values, they know where I stand on those issues, and they know that I'm not some sort of party apparatchik in the way that she seems to be suggesting.
So you're a local man...
with consistent values.
With consistent values around social justice. Okay, we have to wrap up now, but thank you very much for coming on. And I'll probably do a video after the hustings, but thanks very much.
Okay.